The King's Avatar, Chapter 1155 Breaking Through the Legion of Summons. Audio source, wuxia-world-audiobook.com. Chapter 1155 Breaking Through the Legion of Summons. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. The undead knight-faced soft mist's dragon breaks the ranks. In this situation, many would feel their hearts hurt seeing their high-level skill landing on a summon. A summoned creature could be resummoned after dying. Oftentimes, it wasn't a fatal loss for the summoner. But Tangro refused to retreat. The undead knight reached her, but Soft Mist didn't pause. Charge. As for the undead knight, after receiving orders from its master, even if it wasn't willing, it could only carry them out. Soft Mist's spear and the undead knight's shield collided against each other. Dragon Breaks the Ranks was a high-level battle mage skill. A single summoned creature didn't have the ability to completely negate its momentum. The undead knight wasn't sent flying, but it was pushed back, plowing two ditches in the ground. The spear in its hand stabbed toward Soft Mist. Soft Mist's posture was lowered and leaned to the side. The undead knight's spear missed, hitting the ground instead. Soft Mist took one step diagonally to circle around the undead knight. Whoosh! A flash of white flew out. The snow-white spirit cat had hidden behind the undead knight and suddenly launched a sneak attack. A summoned AI wasn't that intelligent. Zhu Xiaoping had controlled the spirit cat to make this sneak attack. This attack was silent and sudden. But to his surprise, Soft Mist's spear was actually able to parry the spirit cat's attack in time. Circle swing threw the spirit cat to the side as Soft Mist continued to press forward. Neither the undead knight nor the spirit cat were her targets. She only had one target, the summoner wind carving. The spirit cat's sneak attack failing had clearly been outside of Zhu Xiaoping's expectations. Even with Yufeng's warning, he still hadn't expected Tangro to be so quick and precise. Devil World Flowers attacked at this moment. A vine suddenly shot out from beneath Soft Mist. However, there was always a sign before a vine attacked. Tangro was no longer a glory noob. She had a solid understanding of all 24 classes now. As soon as she entered the Summoned Legion's formation, the first thing she did was be on the lookout for the Devil World Flowers. Just before, the Devil World Flowers' roots had suddenly rustled. Tangro immediately knew that a vine attack was coming, so she had Tangro jump. Sure enough, a vine attack came. However, Soft Mist had already jumped in the air, so the vine missed, shattering heaven and earth. The level 75 battle mage skill crashed down at the center of the summons. The blazing, dancing, fire-flowing flame pierced through the crust of the earth and was pulled out. Soft Mist flew backwards and magic waves erupted outwards from her at the center. Anything with health inside its range would receive damage. Even though Zhu Xiaoping ordered these summons to avoid this attack, the summons failed to dodge it cleanly. The spirit-type summons with low defense were instantly killed by this powerful attack. Not good. Off-stage at 100 Blossoms player bench, Yufeng slapped his leg and stood up. What's wrong? His teammates also stood up. Yufeng didn't say anything. He fixed his gaze on the battle. In that instant, neither side had made many mistakes. Even though a few of Zhu Xiaoping's spirit summons had died, the cooldown and mana consumption for summons were low, so a few deaths wasn't anything to worry about. Yufeng didn't care about such losses. In that instant, what he saw was Zhu Xiaoping retreating. Facing a powerful level 75 battle mages shattering heaven and earth, retreating was a very reasonable thing to do. However, Yufeng, who had just fought with Tangro, felt a bad premonition arise in his heart. In front of her, you can't back down a single step. Yufeng had understood this after losing to Tangro. However, it had just been a realization. He hadn't treated it like a lesson, so he didn't tell Zhu Xiaoping. But this scene suddenly reminded Yufeng of his previous match. That inadvertent thought floated into his mind. He suddenly felt like things weren't going to be looking good for Zhu Xiaoping soon. Zhu Xiaoping obviously wasn't thinking the same thing as Yufeng. Of course his wind carving should safely retreat from shattering the heaven and earth's range. He resummoned the summons that had died, moved his summons into formation, and prepared to start surrounding soft mist again. Undead Knight. This defender had taken a dragon breaks the ranks just before. Now, he was the vanguard once again. Before shattering the heaven and earth's power fully dissipated, it stepped into its range. However, soft mist was even more eager than it. Before shattering the heaven and earth's effects disappeared, she dashed out towards wind carving. Damn, a pity. Zhu Xiaoping sighed. Behind soft mist, the demon world flower's vines had missed. The undead knight had just been a feint. Its purpose was to hide the demon world flower's attack, so the demon world flower vines could bind her. Zhu Xiaoping didn't know if Tang Rou had noticed it or her eagerness had rescued her. In any case, she safely dodged this attack. From the current situation, wind carving seemed to be in danger. Summoners were one of the weakest classes in terms of close combat. Zhu Xiaoping didn't panic though. Wind carving waved his magic staff and disappeared. The undead knight's large body appeared before soft mist. Its long spear thrust towards soft mist. Switch. Using switch, the user could switch places with a summon. Zhu Xiaoping utilized wind carving's teleport to get the undead knight to attack soft mist. The timing was perfect. Tang Rou continued on bravely though. Her target wind carving was nowhere to be seen, but the undead knight had reached it. What to do? The same as before. Fight. After dodging the undead knight's attack, she noticed that the other summons had surrounded her. Soft mist swung her spear into a 270-degree arc, stopping the summon's advances. Then, she jumped backwards and thrust her spear. 100 Dragon Meteor Strike. It was a skill that required player inputs. The spear split into numerous after images. For a moment, it was impossible to see how many attacks were truly coming. The system helped to speed up the attack. The spear shadows formed a circular arc. The summons that tried to advance were repeatedly hit. Her spear's flowing flame effects triggered 3 times, shooting out lines of fire that instantly killed any unlucky summons in its path. The only one that could continue forward was the undead knight. It was because of this feature that the undead knight became a favored summon among summoners. But although the undead knight had this strength, it was also slow and sluggish. Soft mist pushed away the other summons and jumped back to pull away from the undead knight. She turned around and ran, leaving the undead knight's spear to hit nothing but air. As for the spirit cat, it had suddenly thrown itself at her from out of nowhere. WashOurWorldAudio.com. But this time, soft mist pushed it away with a falling flower palm. Utilizing her own momentum, along with the falling flower palm, the spirit cat was sent tumbling away. Then, Zhu Xiaoping discovered that his encirclement failed to take form. The encirclement had been completely torn apart by soft mist. And now, the summoner wind carving was fully exposed to soft mist. He seemed to be able to feel the heat from her fire chases. Zhu Xiaoping suddenly started to panic. A summoner without his summons was extraordinarily weak. He had already used Switch 2, so it was on cooldown. Was there enough time to summon anything? But wind carving suddenly disappeared. Teleport. Wind carving's weapon had the elementalist skill teleport added to it. For a summoner, this skill increased the survivability of the class. For example, right now, the completely exposed wind carving instantly teleported behind his lovable summons. Zhu Xiaoping was overjoyed, but he couldn't laugh yet. Soft Mist turned around and without any hesitation, her spear thrust out and transformed into a dragon towards his summons. Rising Dragon Soars the Sky. Rising Dragon Soars the Sky had a grab effect. The attack target wasn't limited to just one either. In that instant, the summons in pursuit of Soft Mist were devoured. That tenacious undead knight was no exception. It was unable to resist Rising Dragon Soars the Sky's damage. All of the summons were pulled together. Not just that, the magic dragon was still roaring with wind carving within its range. Zhu Xiaoping had focused on getting his summons to evade it, but he had unexpectedly forgotten about himself. By the time he jumped back in panic when the dragon head arrived, it was too late. Soft Mist extended her reach and this skill's attack range was pushed to its limit. Wind carving was chomped by the dragon head and took the full brunt of the following magic explosion arising from Rising Dragon Soars the Sky. The battle magic engulfed wind carving and his summons and then dissipated. After this attack, no more summons were left on the field. Even the undead knight couldn't take the brunt of Dragon breaks the ranks and Rising Dragon Soars the Sky. The originally noisy legion of summons was instantly cleared away. The not-so-far-away demon world flowers were still rooted there with its petals and leaves gulping up the earth. However, this summon was never the core. With no other summons around it, its effectiveness was drastically diminished. Soft Mist didn't even look at it as she turned around and charged towards the recovering wind carving. This time, he had no protection. This time, he had no options left. Zhu Xiaoping was in a daze. He suddenly had trouble understanding what had just transpired. What just happened? My summons were instantly destroyed. Summon again? His opponent was already too close to him. How could she give him any opportunities? Zhu Xiaoping lost the battle. End chapter.